Just breaking news for the Prime Minister said that additional police assets will be deployed at synagogues across the country after that suspected terror attack at a synagogue in Manchester. Speaking as he flew back to the UK from a summit in Denmark to chair an emergency COPA meeting, he says, "We will do everything to keep our Jewish community safe." I've got to be honest with you, Prime Minister, I don't think you have done enough to keep our Jewish community safe. I think when you happily allow these pro-Palestinian marches on the streets, and yeah, the last government did too. I think it was a point when they were supportive of the Palestinian people and people in Gaza. They're just pro-Hamas marches. A lot of the people who organise them are very, very closely linked with the Hamas terrorists who launched the attack on October the 7th and still hold hostages right now, starved and beaten and tortured in tunnels under Gaza City and elsewhere. When so little's done, when pro-Palestinian activists are able to freely basically set off fireworks and act with impunity on our streets, as they did in London only last night. If you look at my social feed, you'll see I've just retweeted some images of that. Not a police officer inside. When a Jewish man, Keir Starmer, is told off for walking along on one of these pro-Palestinian marches against the route of traffic and being told he has to leave because he's openly Jewish. When children who go to schools that are Jewish schools are told, don't wear your blazer. We don't want anyone to know you're Jewish. When every synagogue in this country has to have a guard outside, more than one guard outside because of the fear of attacks. When people are routinely being harassed in the street, on social media, in public, on public transport. Sorry, it's too late. It's too late, Prime Minister. And when you recognise a Palestinian state, the cause that has been used to justify so much of the, not anti-Zionism, not pro-Palestinian, not anti-Israel, but anti-Semitic views and opinions and attacks on our streets, you gave them succor. You basically said, carry on, we'll give you the reward. That's what you did. This is on you. This is on you, Prime Minister, so don't you bloody dare say we'll put police outside synagogues. You're one of the reasons why there need to be police outside synagogues. Don't you bloody dare saying you want to keep the Jewish community safe in this country when you're part of the reason of why they are not. Shame on you. Shame on you. Right, we're going to change the subject for a moment because we are going to be talking about there are other stories in the news today. I want to talk about Michelle Mone, Baroness Mone. She has been linked to this COVID contract scandal where £122 million contract for basically dodgy PPE assets. She was on a fast track, used that VIP lane during lockdown to get a deal for her husband's firm, which she also benefited from. So did her children in a trust to the tune of tens of millions of pounds. Well, big question marks about whether or not there will even be criminal charges related to this. Let's talk about this with Will Jones. He's editor of the Daily Sceptic. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Sorry to use up so much time with. Just got to get that out of my system. Well, I mean, Michelle Mone, she's a character. People recognise her. She sells bras. She's a glamorous blonde, so she's very much in the news. But is she and her husband, are they by far the worst offenders when it comes to these basically dodgy contracts that were badly fulfilled, or in many other cases certainly fraudulently got?
They're among the worst, but the scale of the corruption and cronyism at the time of this COVID panic and hysteria was quite staggering. There was £48 billion of COVID contracts issued by the government, of which 15 billion, that's nearly 1 in 3, were by Transparency UK, an independent organisation, were estimated to be have 3 red flags of potential corruption, and in fact, as much as 1 in 10, £4 billion worth of these COVID contracts went to people with connections, political connections to the government of the day, and a similar number went up via this VIP lane where you had to have a political connection.
And it was basically Tories talking to Tories. But this is the thing, isn't it? Because you can understand, apparently, look, God, we need to get a hold of a load of this PPE. I mean, we know, American officials were literally bribing people at airports. Don't deliver that to Britain or France. Deliver it to America. I mean, there was a global battle for this stuff. But there's one thing saying, look, my mate actually runs a company that deals with this stuff. I'm going to put you in touch with them. Yeah, brilliant. But saying, not someone I know, or brackets, my husband, but I'm not going to tell you that, and I'll benefit from it too, has just set up a company this morning and wants to provide this stuff. That's completely different league. How on earth did government officials, whether it's ministers or public servants, just start literally writing cheques for millions and billions of pounds to people with no credibility, no background, and often didn't even bother providing anything?
The level of incompetence and corruption is quite staggering. £500 million of the contracts went to companies that were less than 100 days old. In other words, startups, companies that were probably started up just for this purpose, to take advantage of the connections that these people have. While people were suffering, and while these people were profiteering, and they saw an opportunity. Never let a crisis, good crisis, go to waste. That's the saying. And these people clearly saw a crisis and a panic and decided to make some money out of it.
It is extraordinary. I'm sort of utterly appalled by the fact that people thought, oh, how can I make money out of this? You know, and look, there are people, you know, they needed these. There were loans, and they kept their companies afloat, and people in business, and there were people who genuinely did provide, you know, things that absolutely, you know, the NHS and care home staff needed, but other people were just taking the mick. But I mean, how far is the government going in terms of tackling the level of incompetence, so that people delivering stuff that just was totally unusable, as in the case of this PPE stuff from this company which was involved with Michelle Mone, and how much are they actually pressing criminal charges against people who defrauded the taxpayer?
Well, we have to remember that a lot of this stuff was useless. The Michelle Mone example is particularly telling. It's a good example because the 25 million gowns that she provided, and we have to remember this was provided in August 2020, so this was after the panic and the wave. In August 2020, 25 million gowns, they were not fit for purpose. They all had to be written off. They tested them whether they were sterile. 103 out of 140 were found to contain contamination, although the Baroness consistently claimed that, and has consistently claimed, the company has consistently claimed that they were in fact sterile. They've continued to say untruths.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. Do you think that we are going to have a lot more of these sort of cases coming to light?
There's so much more. We have to remember that it was all wasted. That we say that it was needed, but actually the government wrote off £15 billion worth of their COVID supplies, of PPE. That there was more than they spent on PPE in the first place. A lot of this stuff was useless, and a lot of it wasn't needed or used. It was just written off. There was a lot of panic buying, a lot of corruption and cronyism, a lot of making use of contracts. And the problem is, can we really recover this money? The Baroness has been ordered to repay £122 million.
Just sell her yacht, couldn't she? We'll have to leave it there. Will Jones, editor of the Daily Sceptic, thank you so much. Just some breaking news, very sad news from Manchester, from that suspected terror attack on a synagogue. A member of the public has died as a result of their injuries, and also it's understood that another member of the public is also fighting for their life with their life-threatening injuries. The police have also confirmed that the suspect who was shot dead, and that has been confirmed, but certainly one member of the public dead, and one fighting for their life as a result of the incident. 4 people we knew had been injured. So more on that absolutely horrific attack on the synagogue on Yom Kippur. This is Talk.